Hello, everyone. My name is Coulton, as said previously. I will be presenting on the effectiveness of accessibility in academic success. The research question that prompted and started this entire project was, how does classroom accessibility, I'm going to get out of the way, how does classroom accessibility affect students' academic success? This question was researched very thoroughly. The main 3 points that I found was that students with disabilities had significantly higher rates of failing courses and having lower GPAs. That GPA had a significant impact on academic persistence, and that disabled students who are not able to receive support did not thrive as well in academic settings compared to other factors in higher education. Now, this created 2 main hypotheses. The first hypothesis was that academic accommodations would improve the performance and satisfaction of both students with 504 and non-504 plans. Additionally, another hypothesis that I created was that the ease of access of accommodations allowed or rather impacted academic performance and satisfaction for students. Now, to test these, I created a anonymous survey that 34 participants participated in. This measured satisfaction, as well as the accommodations that people had, as well as the helpfulness, the frequency. Additional materials that were recorded were GPA, as well as demographics. And for 504 only, we did an in-depth dive of challenges with receiving their actual plans. So, lovely data. The really significant data that we got out of the demographics and comparing the GPAs between the 504 students as well as the non-504 students was that 504 students had a significantly higher GPA. Now, this could be because a lot of upperclassmen did have 504 plans and did respond to the survey. This also could be because freshman students are more likely to have an off semester, as well as to not have a GPA yet. So, into the nitty-gritty of the data. Specifically with accommodations, we gave a list of accommodations for students to check whether or not they had. They also checked whether they were helpful or not. And for 504 students, the most requested was extra time on quizzes and tests, but the most helpful was flexibility with attendance. And for non-504 students, accessibility to slides was both the most helpful as well as the most requested. However, with both 504 and non-504 students, flexibility with attendance and deadlines did seem important. Sorry? For satisfaction, I immediately blanked out, and that is because of nerves, and that is my bad. But with satisfaction, there was extreme. Everybody had very high results of satisfaction overall. However, the process for getting 504, as well as the satisfaction for courses as a whole, did have some negative feedback. We did run, trying to find the number specifically, there was a non-parametric Mann-Whitney U analysis done with the difference between the satisfaction of 504 and non-504 students. And sadly, there were no significant differences. This could be because of the sample size, but so far, there were no significant differences. The satisfaction for the non-504 students, again, everybody was extremely satisfied, except there was about one person who did have some negative or neutral feedback for the system. And that could be because professors are not able or not enforced to give accommodations to students who do not have 504 plans. So to dive in depth about the frequency for 504 students specifically, we wanted to learn how often their accommodations were met, how often they encountered barriers, encountered challenges, had to ask repeatedly for their accommodations. And so far, it seems like that everybody had high satisfaction with the entire process. However, there were some reports of barriers and challenges met. Now, with being met for the first time, it is, as you can see, either always or often happening. There are accommodations when talking to a teacher and asking for their accommodations. That is being met as soon as they ask them, or maybe after the second time they ask for their accommodations. However, with the follow-up question for students who reported that they did have challenges, there was a high number of people who reported that they still had trouble with their professors implementing their accommodations. With this said, 66.66% of people reported that they experienced a reduced course satisfaction because of the issues and the challenges that they faced with having their accommodations not met. Now, to go back to my hypotheses, my first hypothesis was supported in the fact that 504 students did have a higher GPA, as well as non-504 students did report that they felt like they had better academic outcomes just due to the fact that they had accommodations, that their accommodations were met. My second hypothesis was not supported, just because we did not find any significant differences between the data except for the GPA between 504 students and non-504 students. So, what does this mean? A lot of things. With satisfaction, we definitely see that there is a high satisfaction overall. There are some discrepancies with the data. We did not specify whether or not it was to rate a specific class or to rate over the years, so people could be just generalizing for some questions. People could be also thinking of specific instances where things went wrong. Additionally, it seems like flexibility overall is extremely important. Not only in making sure that people have access to accommodations and have the time to communicate, but as well with making sure that people retain persistence in trying to achieve their academic goals. We found that students did report that when their accommodations weren't met, that they did feel like their GPA was going to suffer. So with that said, there's a perception that, although it's not proven that satisfaction or any issues causes their GPA to lower, there is a perception that it does. And that can definitely affect a student as they are trying to progress through university. Nearly half of the 504 students did report some sort of challenge, which is a little bit troublesome due to the fact that it is a difficult accommodation to get due to the process. And even though challenges were faced, there were no significant differences in GPA at all. again, and that's due to the population size. There is a small disabled community on campus. This was an anonymous survey. About 34 participants participated. With this said, what I found was the most impactful and meaningful data that I found out of my research study was that we are constantly going through unprecedented times. And due to the conversations that have happened currently about whether or not to keep 504 plans, it's really important to be able to allow for students with disabilities as well as students with who qualify for 504 who cannot get 504 due to the process, to be able to have an equitable experience with all the other students. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Dr. Barton.
That's so fascinating. It is so hard to be the final presentation of the day. You did fantastic. I have like 4 questions for you, but I would prefer to open it up to you all. Please, take it away.
I'm so happy you're doing this presentation. I'm a 504 alumni, just graduated this August, and I would like to add that I did not become a full-time student until I received my 504. And I don't know where I would have been able to be without it, because my attendance was the biggest thing that was bringing down my grades, and they were from B's to A's just because of attendance. The access to slides is so important, because even though some days are difficult to just get up from bed and go to class, we can still catch up. We still get the material. But at the end of the day, I think that when it comes down to small universities, what I found with 504s is that it is the anxiety of asking again of your faculty to remember, and it's the advocacy, that self-advocacy that really goes a long way. And most of the time, a lot of professors are willing to work with you. But I do want to hear more about what you said about the 504 conversation in regards of no longer having it.
More of a governmental situation. Of course, St. Edward's is a private university. I have no idea about the decision of St. Edward's University. I know that it is a political issue that is extremely complicated, and I can definitely talk about it more afterwards. But it does provide a lot of issues with people who have severe disabilities, as well as anyone with a disability, in making sure that they get the care that they need. Yes.
As a disabled student that hasn't gotten 504 accommodations, I noticed in your data that even non-504 students benefit from these accommodations. What kind of accommodations do non-504 students actually get?
Cool. So, that is a very good point. If we go back a lot. Non-504 students have access to a lot of the same accommodations that 504 students do have. The only difference is that they do not have access to extra time on tests and quizzes, as well as the testing center. So they have access to record class if the class allows, Panopta recordings if the classroom has accessibility, access to slides, flexibility with attendance if there's communication, flexibility to deadlines, and Zoom office hours. This is by request, though. About, I believe it was 67% of people, of the participants, had to ask for these accommodations that did not have 504 plan.
Yeah, that was my question. So I'm faculty, and if somebody has a 504, it is my legal obligation to say, I will give you access to these things. And of course, if somebody asks and I can do it, I will do it. But I want to press a little bit on, it's not required of faculty, right?
Yes.
So, so can you speak a little bit to that?
I don't know from personal experience. I am one of the students with the 504 plan. I know that from understanding the situation, a lot of students have gone up to teachers, explained their situation, and said, hey, is there something that I can talk with you about? Is there something that I can do to make the class more accommodative?
I see what you're saying. So maybe moving forward, if possibly, so that other faculty don't get confused, accommodations are a legal requirement. Somebody asking me if I can do something because it will help them learn is different. And so just like highlighting both of those things are important.
Absolutely.
But using different language might clarify that. I don't know.
I think that's fair. I think I did report the statistics this way because the questions were asked this way.
Got it. That makes sense.
I didn't necessarily want accommodations, especially as a student, are more so defined of things that make class accessible.
That's a really good point. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes.
I noticed that on this specific slide, you said that flexibility with deadlines and attendance tends to be the most helpful, especially to 504 students. But I also noticed that with the non-504 students, access to slides is the most helpful and most requested.
Yes.
And as a person with some neurodevelopmental things, access to slides has probably been the main reason I've been able to keep up in class at all. Like, they go fast, writing notes is hard, I'm zoning out into space. I'm wondering how access to slides is for people with the 504. Why is there that difference?
I think it just depends on what people are reporting. Our question specifically asked what was the most helpful. So in this regard, they did say that there was some helpfulness with access to slides. However, flexibility with attendance, extra time was a little bit more than the slides, as well as flexibility with deadlines were the most important. Yes?
Well, it might also be what's on those slides, the content.
Absolutely.
If as a matter of fact, it comes out of the chapter, and if you've read the chapter, everything that's on the slides is in the chapter, then access to the slides wouldn't be as important. But if it's on new material that isn't accessible anywhere else, then access to the slides is really important, particularly if it's going to be used in an exam or something like that.
I think before I answer your question, I think another difference is also some teachers already give access to slides, while other teachers you have to request from them.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, what was the most fulfilling part of completing your research?
The most fulfilling part of completing my research is being able to present it. Even though this is a lot of data and it is difficult to be the last presenter, it is really important data for the school. And I would really like to, I think my entire goal is, as a disabled person, to make sure that other people with disabilities have more accessibility than I have.
One more question.
Yes.
Your information is so valuable. I appreciate you so much. What do you have plans already to share it with the school in other ways, or can those of us in the room help you figure out some plans to do that? Because I would love all my faculty to see this information.
Absolutely, I would love to. I know that I have asked if we could publish this data, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
But yes. But I would absolutely love to share it. I would love to be able to present it.
That'd be so great. Okay, so everyone has ideas. Come with us. Kathleen, and then I'm going to invite Dr. Barton up.
I think it would be really valuable for faculty, because I think sometimes faculty, you get a 504 plan, I always ask the person to come up and talk and then say, now if there's anything else you need, but I also don't feel comfortable asking that person over and over again if everything is okay, because I feel like I'm, focusing on them. And so I think it would help to know what the best ways for us as faculty to communicate would be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Maybe just add a comment to that.
Yeah.
I think that just a quick reminder during the semester of like, 'cause I've had faculty that have forgotten about my accommodation,
Mhm.
and that's fine, like this busy semester. So just checking in with yourself and being like, if I have forgotten anyone's accommodation, feel free to come in and remind me. And that feels like welcoming in, because it's a lot of anxiety of like, we don't know if you remember or like forgot. And I've had like professors that I've gone to at the end of the semester and I tell them, hey, my grade on my attendance is still really low and it's like the end of the semester and I don't know if I can remember if I have accommodations. And they told me, oh my god, I completely forgot. So he told me that he'll be starting to like, in the middle of the semester, remind students to come up to them because, you know, the semester gets busy. And that way it keeps it kind of like distant, you know, so you don't get overly involved, but it makes us feel like welcome to come back and tell you.
Thanks.
And I invite Dr. Barton up to cord and stall Allie and say anything that.
So, I've known Allie for a while now, taken a couple classes with me, and always an excellent student. Would always challenge me in a good way to include new information and really was just always a great addition to every class. So I was, of course, thrilled to be her mentor whenever I was asked. And especially when I heard about this project, I thought it was something that was really important to present, just something important, especially for our university, as we're thinking about how we can best serve all of our students and help with academic persistence and retention. But it was a good reminder to me about how important flexibility and communication is with students, especially since, I mean, of course we are expected to with 504 students, but there's several students who really would qualify for 504, but it is too hard to get that plan about accommodation. So I think it's important to remember to be flexible and to communicate and to really see what everyone can do instead of just having very harsh cutoffs without any kind of give or take or communication with students. Especially seeing as we are a small campus, we sometimes have the bandwidth for that. And also reminding that, you know, remembering that we also forget, and it's a great idea to have a midterm check-in. And yeah, so I was just very happy, so glad that we got to do this project, and then we got to present this data.
Thank you so much.